Welcome to Travel On. Today we're going to visit some of the world's best seaside towns that you must visit. Whether you're looking for a day without night or a town full of cats, I think it got a little bit of something for everyone. So, let's get to it. We're going to start with Positano, Italy. I love Positano, in spite of the fact that I refer to it as the poor man's Italian Riviera. You won't find any casinos, but you will find beautiful stone homes covering the mountainsides of a natural recess in the coastline. Celebrities don't seem to visit the area much anymore, and that may be a good thing. Another good thing? Limoncello, made with the region's signature variety of lemons. Not too far away across the Adriatic Sea in Croatia is the seaside town of Rovinj. The buildings are pretty tightly packed, especially in the area around the church of St. Euphemia, but that just makes it more fun with small winding cobblestone streets. If you want to see over all those buildings around you, it only costs about €3 to climb the tower at the church. It is an artsy town, so support a local vendor if you like, but definitely enjoy the seafood, which I imagine I could say about almost any town on this list. Paraty, Brazil may not be what you expect from a South American coastal town. The colonial architecture has been remarkably preserved and reminds you of the Portuguese influence in the region. The Serra de Bocoina National Park isn't far away and makes for some really cool day trips. If you can, try to schedule so you're there during one of the traditional festivals, and you'll be rewarded with colorful street celebrations. The Atlantic waters here are surprisingly calm and clear, so stop by the beaches too. 4,600 miles up the Atlantic coast is Lunenburg, Nova Scotia in Canada. Another colonial town, but with a whole different feel. The British colonial architecture has been kept up pretty well, and that's earned them a spot on a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Of course, there are the usual museums, restaurants, and galleries, but if you really just want to wander aimlessly through the streets and enjoy the town's atmosphere, that's a pretty good day too. I could have probably filled this list with Italian coastal towns alone. I didn't, but I could have. Amalfi holds a special place in my heart because it's one of the first places my wife and I went after we got engaged. I know, right? Visit the Cathedral of St. Andrew, also known as the Duomo di Amalfi, and walk in the steps of greater men. Or just take the time to explore the alleys and pathways through the hillside homes and shops and fall in love. We were there in the month of April, and while it was nice in the town square and amongst the shops and lemon groves, it was a bit chilly and windy out by the shore, especially out on the pier. If you want something a little more exciting and engaging, try Batumi in the nation of Georgia. This Black Sea coastal town has stuff you won't likely find in too many of the towns on this list: casinos, skyscrapers, and nightclubs. But it does still have a significant amount of architecture from the 1800s as well, so you kind of have the best of both worlds if you're torn between the two. I was really surprised by all of this from a former Soviet republic. Our next town, Honfleur, France, is like a scene right out of a painting. Literally. Claude Monet, the famous impressionist, was inspired by Honfleur, so of course there will be the usual galleries. But don't miss the St. Catherine Church. Built by shipbuilders in the late 1400s, it has all the hallmarks of shipbuilding techniques. Oddly enough, the wooden church has lasted much longer than the stone church it replaced. Honfleur is in Normandy, so enjoy some classic French countryside while you're there and engage with a bit of history. Before we go to our next town, I'd like to just say if you like the video so far, please like, comment, subscribe, and do all that other good stuff. It really helps the YouTube algorithm know that more people would like to see my videos, and I would like more people to see my videos. Key West in the Florida Keys in the U.S. is another town that has caught the eye of creatives. The town's most famous resident, Ernest Hemingway, used to fish off these coasts as the water is clean and the whole area just has a Caribbean vibe to it. Only 90 miles, or 145 kilometers, north of Cuba, the Key serves up some awesome food from local restaurants, but has the standard fare as well. But if you're afraid of heights or open water, getting there could be a bit of a challenge. Of course, we like spending time around the Mediterranean, and Italy has plenty of coastal towns to choose from. 5 of them are along the Cinque Terre coast in Liguria, Italy. It's hard to pick a favorite, but we do love Vernazza. If you want to feel Italian, this is the place. It's not a big town, but it is easy to spend a few days at the cafes and walking along the coast. If you include day trips to the other 4 Cinque Terre towns, you'll find a week isn't long enough. They say the town is medieval, but it didn't feel to me like the kind of medieval town you'd find in England or Germany. It was more open and friendly, and the fact that they've avoided building in more modern styles keeps Vernazza high on my list. Whale watching is one of the biggest draws for our next stop, Hermanus, South Africa. Hermanus is actually considered one of the best places in the world to watch whales from land. Locally produced Pinot Noir and Chardonnays are a nice way to cap off the night after a day at the beach or hiking along the cliffs. If you want to get in the water, you can rent kayaks or go shark cage diving, though it seems a little strange to me that they offer both at the same time. The Adriatic Sea makes another appearance on our list as we drop into Piran, Slovenia. This is just up the coast from Rovinj that we mentioned earlier. They say the architecture is influenced by Venice, Italy, and that's probably about right since Venice is just a 3-hour boat ride to the opposite shore of the sea. The medieval old town is a nice change from some of the colonial town centers we've seen, and Tartini Square is at the center of it all. Hoi An in Vietnam is significantly different from what we've seen already. These streets blend Vietnamese, Chinese, and Japanese architecture and really pop at night when the lanterns are lit. The Thuban River used to be a major trading route, but now makes a great backdrop for an afternoon stroll. There is a night market that gets pretty active, so don't tire yourself out at the beach. Try the cow lao noodles for a local taste, but remember to mix it up before taking a bite. These noodles have a little smoky flavor because they're made with ash water from special trees only in the Hoi An area. Kotor, Montenegro takes us back to an old medieval village. I don't think I've used the phrase old world charm yet, but that's perfect because this is the place for it. The old town is a maze of tiny streets and alleys and is always fun to meander around aimlessly and see what you can find. Like cats. A lot of cats. And a museum about cats. And Cat Square where you can take selfies with cats. In all seriousness, the cats are really fun and cute, unless you're allergic, and only add to the old world charm. We got a room at a small hotel for €100 per night, but there are some even more budget-friendly options for as low as €20. Next, we have Vik, Iceland. The best time to come here is in the summer months of June, July, and August, when the temperatures are in the 50s, or about 14 degrees Celsius. You can squeeze more activities out of a short trip since the midnight sun provides daylight for nearly 24 hours a day. But don't be discouraged from visiting during the winter months. It may be cold, but it's really beautiful. For most people, Vik is just one stop along Iceland's Ring Road, which is a shame because it really is quiet and quite pleasant to just breathe in the fresh air and refresh your spirit. Despite being in Greece, our next town, Lindos, is actually just off the coast of Turkey, so there are some really great Turkish influences here. The narrow streets take you past tavernas, shops, and restaurants, and it's a fantastic way to absorb some of that Mediterranean culture. I loved the Acropolis of Lindos as it was much less crowded than its more popular cousin in Athens. The water is beautiful, the food is amazing, the buildings are that classic whitewashed look you may recognize from some other Greek islands. There really isn't much to complain about when you're here. And speaking of whitewashed buildings, the ones in Cartagena, Colombia are just a little bit different. Can you spot the difference? Cartagena has two personalities, modern business and casual historic, kinda like a mullet. The old town is a walled city that has colonial architecture, including the Church of San Pedro Claver. The narrow streets are actually a good place to escape from the sun when the day gets hot. And you may run into women in colorful dresses selling fruit. Caribbean food is popular, but stick to the tourist areas. At least a basic knowledge of Spanish may be necessary if you want to wander outside the upscale areas. If spotting blue whales is on your bucket list, check out Marissa, Sri Lanka. The town not only has a trendy beach bar scene, but also hostels for travelers on a budget. Surfers flock to Marissa for the consistent waves, but some beaches are better suited for beginners. Basically anything you want to do in the water is available here, but steer clear of coming between May and October, unless you like rain and empty beaches. Founded in the 1700s as a royal port, Essaouira in Morocco was actually designed by a French architect who blended the Moroccan and European styles for a unique look. In the 1960s, the town became a haven for hippies, and even garnered a visit from rock and roll legend Jimi Hendrix. The bohemian vibe has mellowed, but it's still there. Nicknamed Wind City, windsurfers, kite surfers, and surfers like the consistent waves, while some beaches allow horse and camel riding. A pedestrian-friendly area called the Medina has a lot of cool shops when you want to come in from the sun. Tofino in British Columbia, Canada is actually within the traditional territory of one of Canada's native nations. Yes, they do have surfing here, but the water is cold. During the coldest months, winter storm watchers pick up the slack, because I guess that's a thing people are doing now on vacation. Don't get me wrong, this place is gorgeous, but you better really love nature because there isn't a lot of anything else to do here. There are some restaurants, go whale watching, hike in a nearby national park, and even learn about indigenous heritage. This is a get away from it all kind of place. By comparison, the people of Tofino must think Amasra, Turkey, is a major metropolis with a population of just over 6,000. There's been a town here for over 2,000 years, but you're not likely to see it in the buildings. Amasra is on the Black Sea side of Turkey, so it doesn't quite have that Mediterranean feel that the islands off Turkey's southern coast seem to have. But it tries, even if it is a bit haphazardly. Beaches and history are the biggest draws here, though the harbor offers boat tours to nearby coves and islands. It is way less commercialized than the resorts on Turkey's southern shore, but if that's your vibe, you'll feel right at home. I have such fond memories of our next town, Oban, Scotland. Admittedly, I've only been there once, and it was a while ago, but I took a train from Glasgow to Oban in the late spring, and it was incredible. The town itself wants to keep its traditional allure while sneaking in elements of the modern world, and it's all good. Get yourself some fish at the pub and day trip out to some castles or nearby islands. Whatever you do, just be back at the harbor in time for sunset. And it doesn't matter that they speak English, just be prepared to say, "Can you repeat that?" a lot. With beaches that regularly rank high on vacation lists, the town of El Nido in the Philippines sits on the shores of some of the most pristine waters in the world. We enjoyed the laid-back vibes that the town offered, but there seems to be a luxury market as well, with an eco-friendly spin. In fact, it seems like the whole area has embraced conservation efforts and is doing a pretty good job at embracing change while not changing too much, if that makes any sense. Some local beaches are secluded getaways, and others are more beach bar hotspots. We come back to the Adriatic Sea to visit Hvar, Croatia. Hvar town is actually on the island of Hvar that sits just off the coast of Croatia. There are plenty of ferries, not only from Croatia, but also from Ancona in Italy across the sea. For about €7, you can visit the hilltop fort built in the 1500s. You can't swim in the harbor, but nearby there are beaches. And by nearby, I don't mean walking distance. You can also take a taxi boat to the Paklani Islands that aren't that far away, and there you'll find more beaches with upscale beach clubs, or even a few for nude sunbathing. We haven't forgotten about Australia. Port Douglas is a small but very important town for anyone who wants to visit the Great Barrier Reef or Daintree Rainforest. There really wasn't much here until it started being developed for tourism in the 1980s, so it doesn't have a ton of stuff, but if your focus is actually to be in the water or in the rainforest, then this could be your ideal destination. That being said, there are restaurants and shops, don't get me wrong. You can perfectly vacation here in a Hawaiian-like atmosphere. It's just people with a desire for the reefs or forests will probably feel more fulfilled with their vacation. Oranjestad, Aruba is another place to go just for the sake of being on vacation. The downtown is very walkable, and some places along the beach you can actually park within feet of the water. That is, of course, if you're not staying in one of the many resorts sitting on the beach. This town makes it very easy to relax and just enjoy life, especially if you're there for one of the festivals. And the water is amazing. I mean, it's Aruba. You know what I'm talking about. But Aruba doesn't have a monopoly on sunshine. Across the Atlantic in Portugal, the town of Albufeira has very few days without sunshine. It's got an old town, cobblestone streets, a church from the 1700s, and a marina that can get you out to explore sea caves or go dolphin watching. This town reminded me so much of the whitewashed villages on many of the Greek islands, and here it is in Portugal. I like that the town is big enough to keep you occupied when you're not out on the water, and also has places for families and places for more adult partiers. Let's sail up the coast a bit to Cornwall, England, where we meet St. Ives. I gotta tell you, the blue-green water here really surprised me. I was also surprised by the number of artists that visit St. Ives to paint the landscape. They tell me there's something special about the light here. As a photographer, I gotta agree. As a tourist, we felt very comfortable walking around the town and just breathing the fresh, salty air. This is a town you could visit any time of the year, in summer for the surfing or in winter for the village atmosphere. Sayulita, Mexico is another place you could visit year-round, but the weather won't have such drastic seasonal changes. What I like about this town is that you don't have to be here for anything specific. You can just be a tourist. Yes, there's surfing, horseback riding, and whale watching from December to March, but there's no pressure to do things. You can just relax and enjoy the town. Beachfront cafes make that really easy. And if you're into the nightlife, there's even some of that. If you're looking for that classic Mediterranean charm but couldn't book your stay in Greece, check out the north coast of Africa. Sidi Bou Said in Tunisia has the whitewashed buildings, the cobblestone streets, the hillside views, and mostly anything else you might expect from a Mediterranean village. But it also retains some of the Tunisian heritage to give it a slightly unique feeling. Not too different, but just enough to remind you that you're in Africa. The town is not as sharp and polished as some other more famous towns in Greece, Spain, or Italy, but it's still a good drop-in for a day or two. A lot of people think they know where New Zealand is, but they're wrong. Definitely check it out on a map before planning to come here. If you do, it's probably because you love nature and animals. Kaikoura is one of the few places on Earth where you can see several species of whale all year round, in addition to seals, dolphins, and other wildlife. The mountains usually have snow on them, so that's a bonus if you don't like the heat, but generally the temps are in the low 40s to low 70s anyway, so heat really shouldn't be a problem. If you like food, you're going to love Grand Case in St. Martin. But really, who doesn't like food? So it's pretty much a given you're going to like it here. They've got the fancy French places, the beach bars, barbecues, and those chic places where everyone wants to be seen. What you won't find are massive hotel chains that block the view. They've kept development to a minimum, so staying in a small boutique hotel is your best bet. And avoid coming from May to December. It might be fine, but that is prime hurricane season here. Fowey, England is the kind of place I like to spend long weekends. I don't plan on spending entire vacations here like I do some of the other towns on this list, but it is a fantastic getaway for a short jaunt. There is plenty to do. Typical tourist things like walking the medieval streets or going to see the local castle. And of course, the pubs. Fish and lobster are two things the English do well that won't mess with those of us who are not accustomed to English food. Is it any surprise we've ended up in the Mediterranean again? Not to me. Along Catalonia's Costa Brava, Cadaques, Spain was the summer retreat for Salvador Dali. It used to be a fishing village, but has slowly built itself into one of those towns where artists come to be inspired by the things that inspired Dali. But you don't have to be an artist to appreciate how special this place is. In the old days, there were no roads to Cadaques, so the town was able to develop a more independent character than most other Spanish towns. But there are roads now, so you can use Cadaques as a base for day tripping out to other nearby tourist spots. We've mentioned Croatia before, and here we are again, this time on the island of Korčula, in Korčula town. It's an old fortified medieval settlement that has adopted the Venetian style. Wine tours are a good way to spend an afternoon or take a walk on the beach, but be warned you're more likely to find pebbles under your feet than sand. Locals say Marco Polo was born here and they've set up a small museum in the house he was supposed to be born in. But there doesn't seem to be a lot of hard facts to back this up, so buyer beware. Swakopmund, Namibia is a relatively new town. It wasn't founded until the late 1800s, and overall development has been slow. But most people come here for the thrills. The desert draws in people wanting to go four-wheeling, sandboarding, skydiving, camel riding, and even hot air ballooning over the dunes. It might seem strange that schnitzel is popular here at the bottom of the African continent, but Swakopmund was originally a German outpost. Though the temperatures are mild, you will want a wetsuit if you plan on getting in the water, because it can be quite cold. Carmel-By-The-Sea is often just called Carmel. It's a town in California that is probably most famous for having had actor Clint Eastwood as its mayor in the 1980s. The coastline here can be dramatic or serene. Surfing is popular, as are the other usual ocean adventures. Here's something that I'll just call quirky. There are no street addresses. All houses are named. And this is what the charm of the whole town is like. So if you like that California bohemian style, then this could be the place for you. And your little dog too. Did I mention that they're really proud of their dog beach? And that's it. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please like, subscribe, comment, and all that other good stuff. It really does help YouTube push my video out to a wider audience. And really, look at my numbers. I need more people to see these. But enough begging. I hope to see you in the next video. Until then, stay safe and travel on.